Hello, everyone. Spirit of 420 here with another philosophical book reading. Tonight's book is Big Panda and Tiny Dragon. It's actually very reminiscent, in my opinion, of The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. Hopefully, I got all those words right. Anywho, I found this one like right after and really liked it, and just haven't had a chance to share it yet. So that's what we're going to be doing tonight, and we'll go ahead and get right into it. As I clear my throat for this, I want it to sound, fairly decent, and I'm not going to rate it in this accent. So, Big Panda and Tiny Dragon. As you can see, by James Norbury is what I'm guessing, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And then you got a little bit of inside animation here, or excuse me, drawings, if you will. Front page. Here's the chapters, which is pretty obvious. You have spring, summer, spring, summer, autumn, winter, spring, and then afterward. And here's the beginning of spring. And here we go. Be brave. You never know what a first meeting might lead to. A new day and a new beginning, said Tiny Dragon. What shall we do with it? Isn't that, just to stop right there, it's funny because I feel like, some of what some of these books are doing, and yeah, you could call them children's books, but they're far from meant for just children. And to me, that's an affirmation that you should do almost every day. Every day is a new day. Every day has a new beginning. And what are the possibilities? If you think small, then you'll be small. If you think big, then big things will happen. Which is more important? Asked Big Panda. The journey or the destination? The company, said Tiny Dragon. That is pretty profound. I won't even bother touching it because it pretty much says everything it needs to, right? I'm too busy to see the flowers right now, said Tiny Dragon. All the more reason to look at them, said Big Panda, and they might not be here tomorrow. Again, these books to me are if you heard what I just said before about the day, right? If you think small, then the day is small. You think big, big things happen. That's about being here now and taking that moment, living that moment, experiencing that moment, and never wasting a moment, if at all possible. Isn't nature incredible, said Tiny Dragon. It is, agreed Big Panda, but we are just as much a part of nature as the tree or the spider, and just as amazing. Everything happens for a reason. Everything has a purpose, which makes each and every one of us incredible and special and unique and important. And if you take any one piece away, then it won't work. It simply won't. A lot of people don't believe that. Funny enough, them not believing it is part of the puzzle. It all works the way it's supposed to. Big Panda, said Tiny Dragon. I like the way you listen to me and talk to me and travel with me. But most of all, I like the way you make me feel. If you have a friend and that's the reality, then you should tell them. It will make their day. I promise. Try to make time for the small things, said Big Panda. They are often the most important. I've in the 80s, it was a real 80s, 90s, and even into the 2000s. There was even a book called Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. And I remember thinking, I like the concept of it. And don't get me wrong, I truly believe in don't sweat the small stuff. However, what I've learned is that all the little details matter, which is what that last statement was about, just to go back, right? That's what, that's about. All the little things, everything matters. So, for a while, my whole point was it was don't sweat the small stuff, and people got confused. They didn't quite get that don't sweating the small stuff doesn't mean that it doesn't matter. It just means there's certain things that you don't worry about. It's kind of like pick your battles, if you will, when you're in a relationship, right? Some battles really matter, other battles don't. It's something I'm trying to teach my oldest son, because he likes to argue about everything as if his life depended on the outcome of him being right. And it is amazing because I'm like, it's just the most trivial stuff, And what's funny, as I sit here and say these trivial things don't matter, what matters is the arguments that my son and I are having. And one day that'll turn away. I had the same ones with my father. And again, one day those arguments will dissipate and we'll look back on them and laugh, and they're there for a reason and they're needed. And I get that. It's just funny being on the other side of it now and remembering back then when I thought those little things were so fucking important that I had to argue them. So, anywho, the most important thing, said Big Panda, is to pay attention. Yeah, it's funny. Nice smack on the ass there. I do sales and marketing for a living. And one of the steps that I tell people is to ask questions. But when I say ask questions, I put listen, listen, listen. Because what's really funny in asking these questions is the answers that these folks will give you is all the information you need in order to either sell them or know that the product or service isn't for them and to move on. But everything that you need is in there as long as you pay attention. Just because you don't know where you are going, it doesn't mean you are lost, said Tiny Dragon profoundly. Very true, replied Big Panda. But in this case, we are definitely lost. That tree has been through some rough times, said Tiny Dragon. Yes, said Big Panda, but it's still here and it has gained strength and beauty. Oh, man. There was, a quote that I just heard recently, and it was from some motivational app. And I heard it, and then my wife had it on there. And I'll probably massacre it when I try to repeat it. But what's funny is, when you think back on all the horrible things, and this goes for each and every one of us, when you think back on all the horrible and just disgusting days and all the days that you didn't think you were going to get through it, just know that you're here and you're undefeated thus far. We're undefeated because we're still here, period. That's all that matters. And you're living to fight another day. Oh, okay. I am on the right page. Thought I was about to skip a page in real life. So I told you I wouldn't read that accent, but that doesn't mean that I can't narrate on the side. Hurry, squeaked Tiny Dragon. There is so much to do. The river doesn't hurry, said Big Panda. Yet, despite many obstacles, it always gets where it's going. That's a good one. Some of them are just self-explanatory if you get my drift. But if you really need me to explain that, being in a hurry, right, doesn't always get you where you want to go. And many times it's having to take your time and do it right that will actually get you there much quicker and correctly. Nothing is happening, said Tiny Dragon. Maybe, said Big Panda. It's happening underneath first. I do like the artwork that these different... It's nice because it just feels a little bit more... I like the abstract... It's not quite abstract, but it is kind of abstract, almost, watercolor at times and then charcoal at others. So very cool. I know that my mother digs this for the artwork. So sometimes I think I'm not good enough, said Tiny Dragon. A cherry tree doesn't compare itself to other trees, said Big Panda. It just blossoms. Uses for a leaf. No. Number one, a boat. Or excuse me, uses for a leaf. Number one, not no. Number one, a boat. Oops. Almost forgot to turn the page. Sometimes you just have to be silly. Isn't that the fucking truth? Let go. I am 50 years old and I'm still told today that I'm just a big kid. And I tell people that's never going to change. Sorry, I had a tremendous itch right on the top of my foot. You ever get one of those, like right on the fucking crest of your foot? It's the worst. I can't tell you. But anyway, I will never stop being a kid. I will never stop having fun. I'm hoping that eventually, I haven't even been doing this a year, but more and more, I'm hoping that my stoner personality will come out. And what I mean by that is the jokes that I tell and the things that I say, offline are many times, well, not many times, most times they're much more funny, put it that way. And I'm trying to get to the point where I am relaxed enough to think the same way, because that's really what it's all about, just so you know. But back to, the point, I'm never going to stop being a kid. To me, the day that you stop having fun for just the sake of having fun, why even bother wanting to live at that point, right? That's one of the things that I will say. It's with what I'm going through, having fun sometimes just for the sake of having fun is much more difficult, but so much more needed right now. So double-edged sword there. Did I make sure? I didn't turn the page. There we go. Each decision you make on your journey takes you closer or further from where you want to go. Well, that's a no-brainer. But it is something that must be said, because each decision you make either 2 steps forward or 2 steps backwards, right? Mistakes mean you're trying, said Big Panda. Don't give up. I've talked about that many times on the show. And the whole reality of what I always say is everything that we have, everything we do, all the technology, it's all based on people making mistakes prior. And if you think about that, you'll understand it. Or you can look at it in a different perspective. I want to change the world, said Tiny Dragon. Start with the next person who needs your help, replied Big Panda. Wow, that one, I'm just going to stop here for a minute and talk about that one, because part of why I started doing this, and part of, what I'm trying to do is help as many people as I possibly can. I even said in my original mission statement, if you will, or introductory statement, bio to the world, if I help just one person, then I will have accomplished my goal. I now continue it because I want to take those numbers further. I already did that. Now it's 100. I want to reach helped 100 people. Next, I want to say that I've helped 1,000 people, and so on and so forth. But it's one person at a time, and it's giving them that individual attention that they need when they need it. And for instance, yesterday, somebody who met me from Skylar's passing, but has, found my show because of that, and has watched me and knows of my life choices, which, just to give it to you real quick for all of us who don't know, but polypansexual, excuse me, polypansexual and an open marriage have been for coming on. So this April coming up here will be 13 years now. Is that right? Yeah, 13. So he needed some real advice, and I don't want to get too much into the details of it. If he's watching, I just want him to know it, it's those moments that as much as he helped, or as much as I helped him, he helped me. When we're lost and having a hard time, one of the best things that we can do is actually help someone else when they need the help. Because just because we're lost doesn't mean we don't have the answers for someone else, right? When we're lost, it's usually because we're lost in our own shit and dwelling in our own shit. But, when you help somebody else, you get out of your shit. And in fact, part of me even helping him was telling, hey man, you're at work. Now's not the time to think about this. Now's the time to use work as a place to escape the problems of home. And then when you're home, you escape the problems of work. That's how it is, And I should smoke a little bit because, by the way, Happy New Year's. We got about 20 minutes before the East Coast celebrates New Year's. 2:20 before we celebrate it here in the Mountain Time Zone. So here's to all of you. But he asked me he needed some real help. Again, I don't want to go into the specifics, but in the simplest of terms, in a long-term relationship that was the first for both of them of this kind, and they were trying to introduce for the last couple of years new aspects and rules that were similar to some of the ones that I live, and he was having issues with his feelings of it and trying to understand it. And it really felt good because after the conversation he had an incredible night with with his partner, and he and her talked for a long time. Started out as an argument, I will say that, but ended up in the most beautiful ways because they have found a great resolution, and I was an intricate part of that, and that helped me. I've been trying to figure out what is going to be my purpose. I've lost my job. I lost a son. That's a lot of loss, but I know it's going to be replaced with stuff. But what do I put my focus on? Right. And I knew right from the beginning, like, I think y'all remember early on, I ended up meeting with a lot of Skylar's friends on a Thursday, right after that Saturday that he died. And just talking to them, it was helping both of us, so clearly helping people and supporting people is going to be something that is part of my future, a big part of my future. I can feel it more and more every day, letting people know, hey, you need some help, you need some advice, give me a call. I'm here. I'm always here. Oh, by the way, fuck 2022. Time for that damn year to move on. Next page. The map doesn't show where I'm supposed to go, said Tiny Dragon. Your journey isn't shown on any map, said Big Panda. You must discover your own path. God, I'm not going to explain that one. I miss him already, said Tiny Dragon. You helped him when he needed it most, said Big Panda. And what if he goes on to live a long and happy life? You know, a lot of people feel used many times because people come into their life and out of their life very quickly, right? And sometimes very powerfully. Like I have, for instance, somebody who came into my life extremely powerfully. And in fact, it was only due to that meeting that all the stars aligned and allowed Skylar to get a motorcycle and meet his fate, right? But if it's not meant to last, or if it doesn't last, then that's because it was only supposed to be short lived. Sometimes you only need to be in somebody's life a short time in order to have the most drastic of effects, good or bad, or in, somewhere in the middle, if you will, but still a major effect on their life, right? What I mean by somewhere in the middle is that, it's as good as it is bad, right? But the point is, any relationship that and I'll give you an example. When I was growing up, I was from divorced parents, so I would do a lot of back and forth, right? And I went back and forth between Columbia, South Carolina, and Atlanta, Georgia. And on that trip, it was usually, maybe one or two stops. So on a bus, you're talking about a 3.5 to as much as a 5.5 hour trip, depending on how many stops. Whether I took the express or the local, which was cheaper, but many times would actually get me there a day sooner just because there was more of those running, blah, blah, blah. So you took what you would get when it came to bus rides. And, the first time I heard it mentioned, I think, was on the movie Fight Club, where he talks about single serving friends, like single serving friends and single serving conversations, right? And I remember thinking about it, not necessarily in those exact terms, because this was, for me, this was back in the late 80s, early 90s. No, excuse me, late 70s, early 80s that I was taking these bus rides. But I remember thinking how prolific and intense and just the incredible sharing that I would have sometimes with these folks on this trip. That I would only know sometimes for maybe 2 stops, maybe the whole thing, from Columbia all the way to Atlanta, but never more than that bus ride, right? And just the incredible times. And those, you're talking about the shortest of time. But some of the things you would talk about would affect you forever. You would, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, then, maybe you've never had one of these conversations, but quite frankly, I can't count the number of conversations I've had where I've had it with a stranger, literally spilled my guts, and then thought about that particular subject in a different way. I had a different perspective because I shared it with somebody who I knew I never had to see again, right? You literally have the ability to share more with someone like that than even a therapist who you have to go back to the next week. And you're like, yeah, so I jacked off with the peanut butter, but here I am this week. I'm going to tell you more about some other gross stuff. When you tell a stranger some stuff and then you never see him again, it's like a cleansing of the soul. If you haven't done it, I highly suggest you go out, take a fucking bus ride, not a train ride, not an airplane. That's not good. Take a bus ride for from wherever you are to the next major city and back, and talk to some people. You'll have a fucking blast. If you don't believe me, think for a minute about how many scenes you've seen in TV shows and film where it's on the bus and what happens on the bus. And the, if you will, almost like, what do you call it? Stagecoach profit. Yeah, I'm going to write that down. The stagecoach profit that you end up getting, on a 2-hour ride. And I'm not kidding. There's, I am not the only one because so many writers have added this into their stagecoach. I got to write this down because that's good. Stagecoach profit. But they've added scenes where, you know, someone's having a situation, they're on the road, and they end up talking to somebody on the bus. And of course, in the movie, it's even quicker than 2 hours, but they end up talking to somebody on the bus, having a conversation, and boom, they make a life-changing decision. So it's not unheard of. And I promise you, it happens all the flipping time. By the way, we're looking at 13 minutes for the East Coast. Are you guys getting excited for 2023? The path ahead looks difficult, said Big Panda. No matter how hard it gets, said Tiny Dragon, we'll face it together. That one is just one that continues to ring true through many of these stories, and that is help is always better. Someone, two is better than one. You know, funny enough, I'm watching this stupid little, and I'm going to do a flick dick on it soon enough, but I'm watching the new Witcher Blood Origin. And it's about 7 outcasts, you know, not that it's not necessarily an untypical story, but regardless, there is a lot of that. What's the word I'm looking for? The more they are, you know, going from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, if you will, and the power that each additional person being brings to it. In this case, elves. I wish this moment could last forever, said Tiny Dragon. This moment is all there is, said Big Panda. And that is the end of it. We will pick up. I will. This is not going to be the next episode. I'll probably do this next Friday and come back to this, and we'll start off on summer. But that last statement, you know, goes back to living in the moment. You know, we only have this moment, right? Beyond it, you can't change it, or excuse me, after it, you can't change it, right? And beyond it, you don't know exactly what it'll bring. You have a good idea of what's going to happen, usually within the next few seconds of your world. And when you don't, I'll tell you what, that's when you start to get really fucking nervous, right? Think about that. When things start to really become hectic, it's usually because things are happening outside of your control, outside of your previous awareness, and they're right in your face, right? And you have to deal with them. That's when shit gets crazy. But here's the funny thing about that. It's also when you grow. It's only when you're pushed, it's only when you're stressed that you actually grow beyond who you already are. Otherwise, you would stay the same old you. We would all stay the same old us. Imagine if nobody had ever been pushed to their measure, you know, previously. We wouldn't have anything. We wouldn't have had the Wright brothers, right? We wouldn't be flying through the air. We wouldn't be reaching the sky with buildings. So the impossible is only possible because someone made a mistake and was pushed beyond their limits. When you're not pushed beyond your limits, it's kind of like, I don't know if any of y'all ever studied brain exercises, right? And here, I'll do this. We can go ahead and get rid of this big screen now and just remove that. So, you know, I don't know if, oh, shite. I mean, that's just being a stoner. You know, what can I tell you? There was a point that I was going to make, but I was trying to give you a better experience, and I fucked it all up, you know. it might come back to you. If anybody can remember, feel free to throw it in the chat, and that will make things a little bit easier. I will move on to saying, again, Happy New Year. I was going to go somewhere. Damn it, that really ticks me off. Oh, it's only when you're pushed, right? That's where I was going. So let me see if I can get it back. If you're not, brain, there we go. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with exercising the brain, but part of what they, and quite frankly, even though I'm a stoner, I'm getting better at remembering these lost moments. If you've been watching the show, I'm getting better because I'm having to exercise. It's literally the point I'm making. The more you use your brain, it's just like a muscle, right? Same thing with anything else. Anything in us is based on pushing ourselves to the limit. If you push your brain to the limit, then it's going to become stronger. If you push your muscles to the limit, they're going to become stronger. If you push yourself emotionally, stress out, right, to the limit, you're going to become stronger. If you get pushed emotionally, mentally, physically, you're going to become stronger. So when the chaotic times happen, this isn't easy. Trust me, I'm in the moment. And when you're in the moment, it's very difficult to remember this. But maybe you'll remember it next time because I'm sitting here saying it to you. But just remember, next time you're in one of those chaotic moments, you are moving forward just by going through that moment. And as long as it doesn't fucking kill you, and if it does, then you have no fucking worries, by the way. But as long as it doesn't fucking kill you, you're going to be stronger, you're going to be better, and that's why. Because you can't go through those things without growing and being better. And if you don't, there's a lot of people out there, and you may know some of them, that their life just never changes. And I've known some of these people, and you're like, you look at them and they're sweet people. They're usually very nice, very loving people. But their lives are very boring. There's not a whole lot happening. And every person matters. That is their reality. And I still believe in everything that I say. All of those people are just as needed as anybody else. Many times I am most likely guilty of judging some of these people and seeing them as having boring lives, not knowing all the extremities of their lives, right? So maybe that's my fault. But at the same time, even the mundane are important. Every single person matters. The people that you think are homeless and dying every day that you think don't matter, they matter. The rich and the famous that you think don't matter, that all they are is rich and famous, they matter. Everybody in between the spectrums matter. Everybody, everything matters. It's all important. There are no coincidences. That is the whole point. You only get stronger by being pushed. And as the old adage says, you could look at it as either God or the universe. But Mother Nature, universe, God is not going to put more on you than you can handle. Period. And don't forget, we're like 5 minutes away now. Yep. 5 minutes away from midnight. On the East Coast, that is. Don't forget that the passage from the boy, the mole, the fox, and the hound, or the horse. It's one of my favorite, and I'll probably get the exact thing wrong, but you will understand that that's all that matters. What's the bravest thing anybody ever asked? And that is for help, right? And asking for help is not giving up. It's actually the opposite. It is not giving up and pushing forward and finding a way to get through no matter what. It's part of survival. And the next time you ask for help, remember that. You are not surrendering. You are not saying you're less than. You are saying, I'm going to get through this and I could use your help to do it. Just keep that in mind. I hope all of you have a wonderful, wonderful new year. Today is Saturday the 31st. So tomorrow is the 1st, which makes Monday the 2nd, right? So Tuesday, is that right? Tuesday. So I'll be back on Tuesday. This will be gone. I have a bunch of job interviews, which is why I lopped off the hair. It was just starting to get long and really interesting. But just like this, it was just starting to get long and interesting. But I can always grow it back. I've grown this shit out so many times. I will tell you this. I do have a lot of job interviews, so things are moving forward. Just a quick update. I did sell the car today that I'd been needing to sell that was going to help us get through this hard time, which was incredibly awesome that I finally sold it for just 2 reasons. I'll make it quick. One, we needed the fucking money. Number 2, and more importantly, in my opinion, it got rid of the vehicle that I feel like was partly responsible for killing my son. It was this vehicle that he left to go get the part and was on his way home that he died. So I didn't really want to see the car or have it around anymore. I wanted to keep the car that he loved and worked on for many years, and that one I do have, and I will never sell it. But this one was just a reminder of that day, and it was time to get rid of it, and we did. With that, all of you are awesome. All of you are incredible. I love all of you. Happy freaking New Year. Let's bring 2023 in with a bang. I can't wait to see what the new year brings, because I have gone through quite a bit, which means around the corner is quite a bit of new stuff and great stuff to come. And I'm going to be there with open arms, and some bad things will still happen, and I'll be fine with that as well. To blaze or not to blaze, there is no question. There is only to get high, to get by. I love all of y'all. I will see you on Tuesday. Have a wonderful New Year tomorrow. Enjoy it. Embrace it. Know that the next year is going to be new and fresh no matter what. So, and hopefully some of y'all will be there with me. Peace.
You can't have my phone number unless we running up the digits. Let me meditate. I just need a couple minutes. Tryna low bump me, my cojones to the big ass. Bitch, I get high. I ain't looking at the clock still.